Hello and welcome to the video, and today it's time to dive deeper into Firewater format. And in my last video I already discussed the deck lists which made it into top 8 of Wolfbark Open 18, the biggest Firewater tournament at this point. And now it's time to look into the replay of the tournament finals. Let's watch a replay of the final match. So here we see Tempest on DB met Hatter against me, and I can't remember who won RPS, so it was Tempest. And in the opening hand, we see Cards of Consonance with Flamewheel God. Okay, works out. I had Compulse, Mirror Force, Double Drag Down, and Snow, so pretty strong hand on my side. And I guess we have to see if the hand is good enough after Cards of Consonance. Okay, not the greatest hand. Yeah, opponent doesn't have any monsters who cannot special summon the Tefnuit. Yeah, nothing that he can do. So I decided to start with the gates. In general, against decks that play field spells, for example Spellbook, it's my habit to set the gates, because then the opponent cannot out my field spell by placing the old field spell on the board. And it's really awkward for the opponent to place the old field spell, because then I could flip my gates, which I previously set, and remove their field spell, because we are still in Master Rule 2. Yeah, so I set it first instead of activating it. And now I go drag down, so drag down ripping the Wingbeat, because this card is a huge blowout. I have 3 sets, so I obviously need to get rid of the card that deals with all of my set cards. And then Snow, searching Snow. It is so broken that this card can search itself. And now you have always a free banish for gates, so gates can discard Grapha, which I just top deck. Otherwise I might have to discard the Snow and then search Grapha and then drag down into Snow again, and hope that I draw into Tour Guide or a Dark World monster. So popping Torrential and then just foolishing the Grapha. Maybe I should have not foolished the Grapha immediately, instead setting the foolish as a bluff, but I also don't get that much advantage just by setting the foolish. I guess it was perfectly fine to foolish the Grapha first just for the deck thinning. Yeah, and now after we thin the deck, I go drag down. But first of all, I saw that my opponent had Maxi in hand. Yes, I saw Maxi, and now I want to force it out before I commit. My opponent decided to chain Maxi, and now I can adapt my plays depending on it. So Snow, searching third copy, I guess. No, actually searching the bash. Yeah, I'm such an idiot. You obviously search the bash here, because you have 2 Graphas, and you want to summon bash twice in the next turn to get double Grapha on the board. Yeah, upstart, and then I decide to do nothing, because in the last turn my opponent didn't have a play, so I can expect that my opponent doesn't have a play in this turn. And yeah, my opponent has to make really awkward plays like banishing 2 to summon Redox. And then I think he went for banish Redox, so Red MD, and now I just compulse it and he doesn't have any plays left except going for banish 2 Blaster, then summon Red MD again. But this doesn't get you anywhere. You are stuck with Red MD and one of the dragons that are still left. Yeah, so yeah, you just lose too many resources by going for this play. And he had to pass. Yeah, I think he had to read that one of my sets could be something else, which is why I said wow. Yeah, not sure what he was thinking when he said wow, but I guess it doesn't really matter because now it's game. So I top deck Trons. Yeah, and with the Trons I have a guaranteed lethal line. So discard the bash and then special summon bash. And if you play Dark World, it's really important to use Dealings as the last push, because you want to decrease the chance of the opponent drawing into Maxi as much as possible. So I commit all of my special summons first, and then the last special summon with Dealings, discard bash, summon Grapha, to not give my opponent the opportunity to draw into Maxi. So Dealings, no Maxi, and then just discarding Dragon Ruler. And my opponent knew that I have lethal on board, and therefore decided to scoop the game. Okay, and now we are in game 2, and this time Cards of Consonance with Flamewheel God. So discard the Flamewheel God, and now the opening hand looks much better. So we have Acid and Sue, a 2-card Hieratic combo, and Hieratic is really scary when the deck is able to draw into one of their combo lines. So normal Acid, then special summon Sue, then Labradorite Dragon, then overlay for Atum, and then summoning a Tempest. And then for some reason banishing the Tempest. Okay, he went for Tempest to access the Breed Dragon, which I can totally respect. Yeah. And a red MD, special summon back the Sue. And that is honestly a pretty rough board. Because in the next turn, my opponent has follow-up with Atom, special summon a Hieratic, and he could tribute a Hieratic to pop spells and traps on my side. And then we get the Labradorite in the graveyard for the Breed Dragon. So really scary board on his side. I decide to go Malefic Stardust Dragon into Atom, removing their best piece of follow-up. But my opponent could make a second Atom in the next turn again. Yeah, this is honestly really rough. So my opponent went for Red Mat, summon back Acid. And then popping one of my back rows. And here I decided to chain Dark Smoke. And then we had a debate because I was not sure how this interacts with the Hieratic exactly. But fortunately, after this tournament, someone asked in the head channel, and we got an answer that the ruling got changed around 2017 or 2020. Can't remember exactly, but the current situation is that in Master Duel, if the opponent has Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres and tributes it, and then you chain Bicel Magnamut as chaining 2, then the Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres gets banished, and because of the location change, it won't meet its trigger requirement in the new chain. So you don't get a body from Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres if you chain Bicel Magnamut to the effect. And I thought this Master Duel ruling should work also in 2014, but then we later figured out that it doesn't work like that. And I was going to look it up, but it's really hard to find specific rulings like this for old formats. So if there is something that we can all learn from this replay, it would be this ruling. In current format, TCG, OCG and Master Duel, you wouldn't get the effects of Hieratic monsters if they change the location due to effects like Dark Smoke, Bestials or Lily Crow. But in Firewater format, you cannot prevent the Hieratic monsters from triggering with cards like Dark Smoke or Lily Crow. Until 2020, when it changed from Master Rule 4 to Master Rule 5. Anyways, it didn't really matter because my opponent changed Royal Decree and now my opponent has just a lethal line. I wait for my opponent to play it out to see what line he goes for. So Stardust Dragon and then Redox and then we go into Star Eater. And honestly, I already saw that my opponent had a much simpler line. And the much simpler line was making Scrap Dragon. Maybe this could play into Book of Moon, but honestly, who plays Book of Moon in Dark World? Not me. Anyways, my opponent has a couple of different lethal lines and yeah, here I scooped. And then we are in the third game. Unfortunately, my opening hand sucks because I have double gates, double drag down, and my opponent has a Hieratic combo. So I did nothing and I waited for my opponent to commit, because if the opponent commits into Tefnoid, then I can just remove it, and maybe my opponent might be out of place if I Blackhorn the Tefnoid. Actually, I didn't summon a single monster, so my opponent cannot summon the Tefnoid. So I would have to wait for my opponent to go normal summon Acid and then special summon Sue. And then I use Blackhorn on the Sue. And then my opponent is stuck with a vanilla on the board and should have no extension unless he hard through the red mat. But it didn't happen, instead my opponent went for the Hieratic Seal of Convocation. And then we go into the Acid and Sue line and then Red MD. And then Red MD special summon back. Yeah, and this is a really interesting line. So my opponent decided to go for more damage by going for the Gaia over the Atom. But that weakens the follow-up of my opponent significantly. I top-decked Yugioh, and this is an amazing top-deck, because this allows me to draw into 2 cards, and if I draw any 2 field monsters, my hand should be much better. So I draw Snow Torrential, and Snow by itself is already pretty good, because now I can discard the Snow with drag down, and then I have a banish for Gates. So Gates, and then set 4, drag down, removing the DD Crow, and then I draw into Grapha. And now Snow can search, another copy of Snow, and then drag down, ripping the cards of Consonance. And my opponent top deck Crow, which is absolutely devastating, because I was going to break this board. Yeah, as you can see, this deck looks really scary when it is able to combo off, but you don't need that much to break boards like this. So for example, a single tanky already deals with 2 monsters, you can remove the red mat with the battle phase and pop the zoo with bare effect, and then the opponent is left with a single Gaia, which isn't that big of a threat. So yeah, the combos are scary, but actually more decks than you might think could break boards like this, including my deck. So I popped the zoo here, and then normal summon Snow. I get hit with the DD Crow on the Grapher. Yeah. Also, I think I made a misplay. I should have summoned the Bro, normal summon Bro, and then return Bro to the hand to summon Grapher. But that would reveal to my opponent that I have an additional Dark World monster in my hand. But I decided to not give my opponent additional information. So from my opponent's perspective, I have 2 unknown cards. I set 1. And the reason why summoning Bro is better here is that in case I get hit with DD Crow, I can just discard a Snow for Dark Smoke and banish the monsters from my opponent. And then Snow can search another copy of Grapher. And then with Grapher and another Darkwood monster, I'm back in the game again. Yeah, but here I decided to not play against a potential top deck DD Crow, which is already really rare. It shouldn't happen that the opponent top decks a single DD Crow with a 1 draw from Breakdown to the Grave. I don't know. Let me know your opinions in the comment section. What is more correct? Summon the Bro or summon the Snow in this game state? Anyways, my opponent goes for Upside Goblin, which is really beneficial to me, because I'm pretty low, so I get 1000 more life points. And then Gaia can attack over the Snow. I wish I had Grapher. And then Goldsark into the Breedragon. And here a top deck Tour Guide. Okay. So yeah, I think my plan could have worked out, especially with this top deck, if I just went normal summon Bro. Yeah, instead I have to discard it and the normal summon Tour Guide. I summoned the second copy from a deck because I want to keep my Bros in a deck as a potential top deck which works with both the gates and the D-links. And now I have a pretty strong defense with the Sandmains, Bottomless Trap Hole, Torrential, and Dark Smoke, which could become an interruption if I draw into more Darkwood monsters later. And then Gaia in defense, my opponent doesn't want to let me crash the Sandmains, which is pretty interesting. Anyways, oh, I top deck into another gates. It sucks to draw. I wish I drew into another Darkwood monster, especially Grapher. So if we have Grapher access here, that would be amazing. Yeah, and then my opponent goes for the normal summon asset. I was considering to torrential it, but I did not play around the wingbeat of a giant dragon. Maybe I should have played around it. I don't know. Let me know your opinions in the comment section. Should I have used the torrential here? Yeah, I was expecting a Zoo, and then if my opponent goes Zoo on the asset, then my opponent gets another Labradorite Dragon, and then I get much more value from my torrential. So my opponent commit 2 cards into 3 bodies, and all of them die against a single torrential. Yeah, would be absolutely amazing if my gameplay worked out, but here my opponent had the wingbeat of a giant dragon, which is a huge blowout card against this specific game state. Yeah, so I top deck Compulse, but it won't be enough, so my opponent has the Breedragon. The Breedragon can revive the Flame Guard. And then Tempest, banish 2. And then Stardust Dragon. And here I had to make a huge think and decided to bounce the Stardust on attack declaration. Yeah, I wish my opponent attacked with the Gaia first, but my opponent is really smart, a really good player, and decided to attack with the Stardust Dragon first to play around stuff like specifically that. Yeah, really well played on my opponent's side to make the correct order against a potential Compulse. Yeah, the skill level of my opponents in the top cut is absolutely astonishing. So Upstart Goblin, top decks Grapher, finally. So now I can banish the Grapher, and then Grapher can pop the Gaia. And then Tour Guide gets it with the Maxi. And I think those are the only game states where Maxi is really toxic. Otherwise, I think Maxi is not that big of a problem in this format. It's only really toxic when you play mirror matches between combo heavy decks, and one deck has already a pretty strong board or much pressure going on, and the other deck needs to come back. And then you have Maxi, which makes it really hard for the opponent to commit, because for every special summon you draw, well, you kind of need to commit in order to get out of those desperate game states, which is what I had to do here. So I returned the Bro back to the hand to summon Grapher. And then I made another extremely risky play, In general, I don't like to go dealings against the Dragon Ruler deck, because for each dealings activation my opponent goes +1, because the Dragon Rulers can be special summoned from the hand or the graveyard, so it doesn't matter at all if the opponent has them in the hand or the graveyard, but the opponent just got to draw anyways, so dealings is +1 for the opponent. But here I had to go for it. I had to draw into more back row, for example, Blackhorn of Heaven, or I don't know what I had left in the deck, but I had to draw into some defensive cards. I can't pass on this board, otherwise I just get OTK'd the next turn. So dealings, discard Bro, draw a card, my opponent discards the Blaster, so +1 for the opponent as I mentioned before. And now a top deck Eradicator, but also Eradicator as a defensive card is not that good in this game state, because if I tribute Grapha, then it's much easier for the opponent to OTK, and currently my opponent has only one spell, so Eradicator plus Grapha trading 2 cards for 1 spell doesn't seem that good. I can at least clear the Debris Dragon, but it plays in a Tefnuit and my opponent has already 2 Tefnuit in the hand. And now my opponent top decks a second Seal of Convocation. Maybe I could have tried to shotgun Eradicator, but it's extremely risky, so I put my opponent on better have something, and my opponent had something. Yeah, my opponent has just too much at this point. So Su and then Tefnuit into Flameville Guard and then Black Rose Dragon, and I think here's where I scoop. Yeah, because now I lose my entire board minus the Sandmains, and then the opponent is just going to summon his Dragon Rulers, maybe make Big Eye, and then steal the Sandmains. Yeah, at this point this deck had just too much gas going on, and I cannot defend it with a single Sandmains. And also I'm in top deck mode, my top decks have to be really good, my next top deck would be Mind Crush, so I'm not winning this game either way. Anyways, yeah, as I said before, I think I could have played it a little bit differently by normal summoning the Bro and reveal to my opponent that I have the Bro in the hand. But if my opponent hits me with the DD Crow on the Grapha, then I am in a much better position if I have the Snow in the hand compared to having the Bro in the hand for the Dark Smoke. And that was the final replay of this amazing tournament. I think the first 2 games were pretty one-sided because one of us drew significantly better than the opponent, but the third game was really interesting. Lots of decisions that had to be made correctly in order for one of us to win, and I made a decision that might have lost me the game. My opponent made lots of good decisions except for one in the early game where he overlaid the Gaia over the Atum, but also he didn't draw any Dragon Shrine, which would give him access to the Dragon Rulers. Maybe he sided out the Dragon Shrine, I don't know. But in general, I would expect the Hieratic Ruler to draw into Dragon Rulers at some point if you don't have access to Atum. Yeah, in the end, it was a really difficult game 3 for both of us, and Tempest managed to come up on top and won Wolfbark Open 18, the biggest Firewater tournament so far. And if you like this format and want to play in tournaments like this in the future, make sure to check out the Discord link in the video description, and like and comment under this video. Also subscribe to my channel, that helps me a lot because I want to get to 1k subscribers in this year. So every single subscriber counts. Anyways, that's it for this video. See you in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye.